Okay, and welcome everybody. My name is Corey Smith, and you are on Horse Racing Tell Me How, the series of webinars. So now Series 3, Episode 2. We have a pretty impressive lineup of guests tonight, the Corstens family. Leon, I guess the experienced one. Some good photos here of you I've tried to dig up, but welcome along.
Thank you.
We've got Kevin. So Kevin, welcome on for your first time.
Thanks, Corey.
We've also got Will Larkin, who's Kevin's son and is the assistant trainer at Kevin Corstens Racing. So, you know, the apples aren't falling very far from the tree. Welcome, Will.
Thank you. Welcome.
And Troy, this is your third time on, but hard to believe that it's the third series of the webinars.
Yeah, it is actually. I just looked at the heading and I was quite surprised it was the third series. It's gone quite quick.
Yeah, it's been great. So we'll move on. Firstly, we'll start with yourself, Leon. You can't see the photo of you for our heads there, but this is a little while ago. I mean, you don't look a day older now, but, I mean, what an experience working with Bart all those years ago. And on the left there, we've got a little bit of your background story. But if you want to sort of just fill us in, you know, a little bit of a broad view of the story, I guess, growing up.
Yeah, well, I started off as an apprentice over in Adelaide for a trainer called Graham Higney. And Graham Higney, he was a really good trainer in his own right. He trained a really good horse called Tobin Bronze. And he also trained a really good filly called Proud Miss. I think she won 11 straight as a 2-year-old. Yeah, I had a little bit of success as an apprentice. I think I was leading apprentice over in Adelaide there, and things were going really, really good. And I had a couple of really nasty falls, and weight sort of caught up with me. I was out of competition for quite a while, and my weight shot up quite quickly, and I found it very, very hard to work the hours that we were working in those days, and monitor my weight at the same time. I just couldn't do the both. It got a bit too much for me. So I gave racing away for a while, and I became a baker at Tip Top Kernlight Gardens, and I think I was there for about 8 years. And I don't know, somehow or other, the urge got me to come back to racing. I don't know why, but that's where it goes. And I sort of joined up with Bart. He come back. Well, I started riding track work for JB for quite a while, and he asked me to come and be his foreman, and I didn't even really want to work back full time in racing in those days. All I wanted to do was ride track work and sort of please myself. And I think that went on for about 9 months, and eventually I succumbed and became his foreman.
And 25 years as a foreman to Bart, or 25 years you were, you know, the formidable force, so to speak. That's a long time to be working with somebody. You must have had an amazing mutual respect for each other during that time.
Yeah, I think, look, I respected him immensely. I thought that, like I was lucky enough to travel with quite a few of Bart's horses overseas, and I respected him immensely. I thought he was one of the best trainers in the world.
And did you ever think that, you know, all these years on, you'd be still training and you'd have not only your son's training, but also, you know, the next generation potentially involved as well?
Not really. I never ever give it a thought, to be quite honest. I thought I would be the solitary one because I don't know. I think Troy started off. I think he started off working with C.S. Hayes over Anguston over in South Australia, and he was there for quite some time. And they must have done a bit of work with him because when he came back after a couple of years from Anguston, I thought he'd fallen slim down to, you know, and he looked like a beanpole, and I kept looking at him just to see what happened.
And,
very nice.
Made up for it since, hasn't he?
And then I guess we'll move on there to the boys. So I guess the next generation, Troy and Kevin, but we'll also include Will in that. So What are the different traits, Leon, that you see in the two boys?
Yeah, well, look, I was a bit surprised because Kevin wanted to be an apprentice mechanic, and he became an apprentice diesel mechanic. And we had a bit of a team going at Romsey, and Kevin was started off with that. And then one thing led to another, and we had to go up there for my wife to be looking after the two kids that Kevin had. And I was a bit surprised, really, that he wanted to keep going because the wages weren't that good, really. Eventually, he give it away when he met a new partner, which he's with still now, Izzy, and was working at the airport as a diesel mechanic. And Kevin was making quite good money, but he didn't like everything. He didn't like the smell on his hands regarding the diesel when he come home and this, that, and the other. He didn't like working shift work, and he was making really good money there, a lot more than where he was in racing. And he came to me one day and he said, "Dad, I want to go back to racing." I told him it was crazy, but eventually he came back to racing.
And I guess Troy and Kevin, we'll start with yourself, Troy. When did you first decide that you were going to become a trainer?
Corey, it wasn't actually until I finished school. I did accounting for a year and was no good at that. And then I went and did marketing for a year and figured I worked out that pretty quickly, and basically was no good at that either. And then, I don't know, I just got the bug. I didn't get it till real late. I used to, as I was growing up, I used to live at Leonard Crescent with Kev, and we'd see the hours that Dad had put in at Bart's place, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And I'd sneak a peek at his wage slip every Friday. And it wasn't inspiring, I can tell you. It was, I remember it was around about $370 a week, and I just thought to myself, if that's how hard you have to work and that's how much you get for it, I don't really want to do this. So it put me off for quite a while, but I eventually got the bug. But it did take me a while. I was probably 20 when I got into it, and then I went over to Lindsay Park and worked over there and really loved it and learned a hell of a lot, and then came back and went overseas for a little bit and then came back after that.
Yeah, and that's probably a bit of a pattern there, Kevin. And I guess, is it similar for yourself that you sort of, you looked elsewhere, but ultimately you grew up around the horses so often that you were always drawn back to it?
When we lived in Leonard Crescent, we actually moved from South Australia to Fisher Parade, which was around the corner. And I remember living in Fisher Parade, and they had beautiful sand day yards, and they had these weeping willows that used to go over. We used to swing from the willows all the time. And then we moved around to Leonard Crescent. But I remember working at Leonard Crescent in the mornings, and it was funny. I was just thinking about a story then that Dad was really ill. Dad rarely had time off. He never had time off at Bart's at all. And I think it was about 2:00 in the morning. I heard him vomiting all night. And I got up at 2:00 in the morning. We used to have the boys that used to stay, all the staff used to stay in the rooms, and I got them all out of bed at 2:00. They normally started at 3:30, but because Dad was sick, I thought they needed to start earlier. So actually, I think I was only about 12 or 14, and I got out and made everybody get up and start work, and then Dad eventually dragged himself out of bed. He was still really crook, but he stayed out of bed and came out, and he said, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I got everybody to start work because I heard you were sick, so I thought I'd get everyone going." So I had a really, we really had the bug from the day we were there, from when we lived at the stables.
It makes sense. And Will, is that bug just been passed on? One more peg down the ladder, I guess.
Yeah, very much so. I actually started working just on the weekends for Leon when I turned 15, just as a job for money. But just noticing the passion through of what Leon did and how he went about it kind of come through to me that way.
Yeah. I got told by a guy, Phil Wells, that I do a lot of chatting to Leon. He said to me, rather than reading all of these books and scouring websites for hours and hours, spend 20 minutes with Leon and you'll learn twice as much. So that's a pretty glowing recommendation there for yourself. And you must have seen a lot in the times that you've been around horses. What's the most pleasing part about seeing your family so heavily involved?
Oh well, I think it's terrific. Really, they're all going extra well. When Kevin decided he was working with us, and he decided, I think when his partner got sick, he decided to stay where he was. We wanted him to come to Geelong, where we are at the moment, and he didn't want to shift because Izzy wasn't well, and he said he was staying put. He didn't want to shift because of her, like, you know. Yep. So he stayed there, and I'm over in Geelong at the moment, and Troy runs the Flemington stable. So no, it's all working good, and I think Kevin's done a great job since he's gone out on his own. You know, it's not an easy occupation, believe me.
Yeah. And Troy, I guess this is a good one for yourself based on the "Let's Take Over the World" comment before. But how many staff would the three of you now combined employ? And I guess the fact that you're spread out over the state now, is that just by chance, or is that part of your taking over the world plan?
I don't know about that, but we've Dad and I got about 30, then we've got about 15 at the farm, and how many you got, Kevin? Will probably
8 or 9.
12.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So all up, you know, around 50 or so. So it's quite big. It's great. I'm quite proud of that. It's great.
And do you see, Kevin, do you think that the team will get back together at some stage in the future, or do you see it at the moment that you essentially work together anyway, but in your own separate ways?
Well, look, I don't know. There's a lot of pros and cons to working together. I mean, Dad's just an absolute wealth of knowledge as far as training goes, but the way I see it, like we have newer ideas, especially Troy and I. We both have probably a lot newer ideas sometimes. And Dad has his old beliefs and his old ideas, but applying them all together is just you know, that it gives you a whole new perspective on training the horses, or different ways of training the horses. And Troy, man, one of the best horse judges in the world. Like as far as horse flesh goes, Troy's, and you know, I'd love to have him on board, but I'm happy doing it on my own at the moment, and I'm comfortable doing it. I don't have anybody to answer to. I'm not, you know, I spent some time with Troy, and in the morning he's on the phone 24/7. He's sitting there, he's meeting with all these staff members, and I've got a smaller team. It's a more of a niche team, and I don't know if I'm ready to take that next step to get into to having hundreds of people around the place, all over the place, and trying to control that as well.
Yeah, and I could get that probably. That day I spent with you, Troy, looking around the yearlings, I think it would probably be easier to call you in the car seat next to you to get some chat than to chat, because the phone just does not stop. It's incredible the hours that you guys put in. And I guess another question here for Troy and Kevin: what other mentors have there been along the way other than Leon that you've taken a lot from?
Go, Troy.
So I was, I reckon David Hayes would have to be a very good mentor to me. I worked for him for a while, and I didn't get close to him then, to be honest, but having spent the last 10 years out in the Flemington box with him, and just to watch him, I'm not sure everyone will remember, he had a bad run for about, when he was making the transition from Lindsay Park in South Australia to Euroa here in Victoria. He had a really bad run for probably a good 18 months. And it was right at the same time when Lee Friedman was also having a bad run. And it was amazing just to see how David got himself back up and out of that. And I bounce stuff off him all the time. He's a great sounding board, and he helps me a hell of a lot. And he's been fantastic to me.
Yeah, and Kev?
Well, look, we grew up with Bart. So there's so many phrases that Bart used to say that Dad still says, and every time if I'm working on a horse and a phrase comes into my head, it'll be like, keep yourself in the best company and keep your horses in the worst company. It's lots of things like that. I actually spent time working on the school holidays when I was younger at at Colin Hayes' stables as well. So I had his foremans like Kevin Ryan and, and Dad had another foreman, Bruce Freeman, and he sort of took me under his wing at Bart's place and taught me a lot of fundamentals as well. So, but, I look up to Dad as a trainer and he's, like I said, he's a wealth of information. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he's probably forgotten a lot more than what he, than what he could put out. So, there's so many people that I actually look up to. I mean, Troy, I said to Troy one day, I said, who do you like? Who would you liken to as far as training goes? He goes, there's so many people out there. He mentioned John Size and all these top trainers that we're aspiring to be as good as. So, there's always, there's a top echelon of trainer. We're only I'm only in my infancy stages, but Troy and Dad have both got to those heights, and and that's how I look at them. So they're always great mentors for me.
Yeah, and the future, Will, I guess, where do you see yourself, and what's the plan for you at this stage?
Definitely in partnership with Kev. I just love working next to him. He teaches me a lot. There's no day that goes by that I'm not learning something off him. And even just off Troy and Leon as well. Like after pretty much every time we have a horse run, they're on the phone. We're always chatting about doing this, doing that. And like, even though we're not completely together in partnership, they're a big help as well.
Yeah, and I guess, Leon, here's a good question. We've just got a poll on the screen there as well for some voting there, which SWATstat is leading pretty heavily at the moment, as we could probably expect with her exploits recently. It's just asking which horse we think is the most talented Corstens horse at the moment. We also, Leon, so the final question there is, what's the best bit of advice you've ever received?
Work hard and you'll get where you want to.
That's as good as they come. All right, now quick fire question round. We're going to ask a question here. Now I've got 4 of you rather than 3. But so I'll ask a question, and you can see those there on the screen. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to read them. But I'm going to give you a question. First thing that pops into your head, and as quickly as you can with the answer, and I'll go Kevin first, Will second, Leon, and then Troy. So first question, favourite horse of all time that you've trained? Kev.
She Shall Fly.
Twilight.
Leon.
I think the favourite horse, I'd have to say Hyperno. He was a real rogue. I think Jeff Murphy trained him originally, and we ended up getting him off of Jeff. The owner shifted camp. I think he'd checked ligament, and the horse had about 12 months out in the paddock. And I sort of messed around with him for another 6 to 8 months before we got him to the races. We used to take him to the beach, swim him, just messed around. I had a lot of time for the horse. I loved the horse.
Yep. And Troy?
My favourite was probably Labiel. I didn't train her, Dad trained her, but I was heavily involved. And she just had a real personality. She wasn't the best horse that we've ever trained by a long shot. Ran second in a Caulfield Cup, but just had a real personality and a will to want to please and do her best. And she was just a freak.
Yeah. And Kevin, favourite horse that you never trained?
Dane Ripper, loved her.
And Leon?
The one I never trained.
Yeah, one you would have loved to have trained.
Well, we were underbidder on efficient.
I'd have to say Winks was a superstar, wasn't she, really? But I might have done the right thing for her, so she mightn't have been as good. But she was an absolute superstar.
Yeah, Winks. And Troy, for you?
Yeah, it'd be Black Caviar for sure.
Black Caviar, yeah. Underbidder, still haunts you. So, if you could choose any horse that's not in your stable now to train, which one would you choose, Kev?
Oh, yeah, good question.
One of Leon and Troy's.
What's that? Yeah, what's that?
and Will?
Going around at the moment. At the moment, I'd love to have a younger horse, like a 2-year-old. So at the moment, they're not really going around. But there's that that Hawks horse, that Beauty.
Written Beauty. Yeah.
Written Beauty, yeah. I just think the way it won at Moonee Valley, it was just incredible.
Yeah. And Leon, any current
Yeah,
horse?
I don't know about other horses. Look, I think at the moment we're very lucky, and I think we've got some lovely 2-year-olds come through at the moment. So I think all my attention will be to those horses that are coming through. I don't sort of worry too much about other people's horses.
Yeah. And Troy?
I'd have a Bivouac or a September Run. Bivouac because that was as dominant a win as you'll see in that sprint on the weekend, and then September Run. I know how good Swats that is, so she gave us a towel up on Derby Day, so you'd love to have her in the stable.
And Cox Plate or the Everest, Kev?
Cox Plate.
Will?
Cox Plate.
Leon?
Cox Plate.
Troy?
Everest, because we're going to win it next year.
Ooh, nice. Hopefully with one of mine. Dinner with any current trainer in the world, who would you choose, Kev?
James O'Brien.
Joseph O'Brien.
Joseph O'Brien, sorry, yeah.
And Will?
Probably Chris Waller.
Leon?
Yeah, I'm with Kevin. I did meet Joseph O'Brien when I went to Ireland, and I thought he was an amazing man, really, really good to talk to, very helpful in a lot of ways. And I think I'd like to pick his brains a bit more.
Funnily enough, I actually started the webinars from an idea, a guy called Jack Cantillon, who's actually in a horse with yourself and Troy. Jack actually ran a series of webinars in Ireland that I watched, and his business partner actually does track work for Joseph. So I'm pretty sure we could sort that out because he's in yours and Troy's ownership. So we'll have to ask him. And Troy, who would you choose?
Well, it wouldn't be Chris Waller because he's boring as batshit. It wouldn't be Joseph O'Brien because he's probably in the same vein. It'd be Mike the Cock because he's an absolute scallywag and he's a lot of fun. I've never had dinner with him, but I reckon it'd be great fun to pick his brain and have a good drink with.
Well, he was on the webinar last week, so should have got you on board then, Troy, and we could have had a good laugh. And all right, the next one, horse that showed you the most quality, Kevin, but let you down.
Oh, I haven't really had one of those just yet. I had a couple of horses that I thought would be really good, but broke down. So, no, I couldn't say anything yet with that.
And Will probably in the same boat.
There's one that comes to mind, but it's not let down on his own accord. He's one that sadly went amiss, but he sticks in the mind for sure.
Yeah, and Leon?
Too many.
A few of them let me down. Especially early doors when I used to do a bit of punting. So, I tell you which one let me down most of all. It made me give up punting a long, long time ago. It was a horse called Let's Elope. I think she had a couple of runs, and I think we ran her in the show day handicap. It was on a Thursday at Caulfield. I think it was a show day handicap, yeah. And we thought she was an absolute certainty, Joe Agresta and myself. And I used to have a little bit in those days. And it rained a little bit overnight, nothing to sort of really talk about. Anyway, Bart sent Shane Dwight to come over and ride it. And we said to Shane, just look, when you get to the top of the straight, just ease her out and she'll do the rest, like, you know. Well, I eased her out the top of the straight and there's where she stays. She ran mast. So my punting days are over after that. And I think she won her next 6 or 7 starts.
And Troy, or is it the same one, or have you got another?
You can't. No, I got another one. We had a horse called September Quarter. And Dad, it was back when I was racing manager for Dad, and he rang me up and he said, I'm not sure what you paid for this, but it's the best horse you've ever bought. And I said, you're kidding me. And he said, I just watched the gallop with John Sadler, and we've never seen a horse work like this at Flemington. He said, just give me a couple of days, we'll see. We'll back it up and give it another gallop next week and see if it's not just a fluke. Galloped it the next week, and he said, no, you're right, this thing's a superstar. If it's not a Group 1 horse, I'm going to give up training. So I went out, I bought the mother, I bought the sister, I bought the cousin. We took it to Caulfield because we thought it was a good thing, and we all had a punt, and he was beaten about 7 or 8 lengths and ran shithouse. He had another 2 starts for us, never got warm, and funnily enough, a young Kiwi bloke had just started training in New South Wales, and another guy that I was partnering with said, I'm going to give it to him and just give him a try. And took him up there, and he rang my mate, and he said, I'm not sure what those Corstens blokes were doing, but this thing's a superstar. And that was Chris Waller. Guess what? He couldn't get it to win a bloody race either. It ended up winning a picnic race in New South Wales for Joe Cleary, and that was the only race it ever won, and it was just a complete mongrel.
Yeah, that's it's tough. It's a tough game, and I think you hear a story for every good story. You hear sort of 3 or 4 of those types of stories. But it's pretty impressive when one does come over the line. So, favourite sports? Oh, sorry, I've missed a question there. Which moderately priced sire? So obviously we're excluding the I'm Invincible price brackets here, Kev. So any sire that the average horse trainer can go and buy. Which sire do you think will boom next?
Oh, look, I like a Rich Enoughs. I think they're really nice horses from what I've seen so far.
Yeah. And Will?
Well, he's starting to boom now, and I reckon in a couple of years will be crazy, but Tornado.
Yeah. And Leon?
I thought Seamus Awards has done a super job, really. A lot better than I ever expected. I think he could be a really up-and-coming side.
Yeah, well, we hope so with Gawa, Troy.
Yeah, and I hate to say the same thing, but I'm agreeing with Dad. I just reckon he's doing a phenomenal job at the moment. He's got some terrific horses out there, and I think they're only going to get better with a bit of time, the Seamus Awards, so he's my pick as well.
Yeah, and Swatsat is a bit of a flag bearer there, so that must be partly the reason why it excites you so much.
Yep.
So, and favourite sport outside horse racing, Kev?
Well, I love motorbike racing, the road racing.
Will?
AFL football.
Leon?
What sport do I like?
Everything.
Look, I like watching any sport at all. I'll stay up all night and go to work early in the morning just to watch any sport, really. I love watching footy. A really good game of footy is really good.
Yeah. And Troy?
Believe it or not, I'm a mad snow skier, so I love snow skiing.
Nice one. And we've finished. We've done pretty well there. We've got just one question. I've also got a poll up there which says who gave the most intriguing answers to the speed round. Troy's winning that at the moment. You've got a little bit of time, voters, to get us in there for Leon and Kevin. But what's the best bit of advice for potential owners coming into the sport, Kevin?
Don't come in thinking that you're going to win $1 million. Come in and make sure that you're coming in for the right reasons. Have a bit of fun with your mates, bit of a social thing. And if you get a couple of winners on the way through, you've done a great job.
Troy told me I was winning $2 million, so I'm a bit worried now. And Will,
I'm trying to tell you something.
What advice would you give, Will?
Definitely just come in for the right reasons. Again, just have fun, enjoy it. It's an amazing experience, and the thrill of winning is just amazing. And it's more of, rather than focusing on having the best horse there ever is, just take what you get and just take it in, all in.
Yep. And Leon?
Yeah, I agree with Will, really. I think that if you're coming into a horse, I think you got to make sure you keep your feet on the ground and don't get your expectations too high, because you can get very, very disappointed. Go in and socialise, have a great day when you go out there, enjoy yourself, and that's the best. I wish I could give that advice to myself, really, but I seem to take it too serious.
And Troy?
I think you're dipping your toe in the water, you've got to find a trainer and a company now, because they're bigger than just trainers now. You've got to find someone that you really fit in with, and someone that you like. And if you don't like what's going on, you don't fit in or whatever, just vote with your feet and go and try someone else, because you will eventually find someone that you really love and that you really click with and that you're happy with, everything like that. So I always say in horse racing, it's not how good a winner you are, it's how good a loser you are, because let's be honest, 85% of the time we're losing. So we've got to be good losers in this caper.
Yeah, and I've got other questions there. So that's the speed round finished. We'll also have, just after these ones, we'll also have question and answers from the public. So if you guys have any questions out there watching, then send them through. I can see a couple up there now, and we'll move on with these ones here. So training in the future. So what experiences overseas have you had, Troy? So I saw in your bio that you did travel overseas, but we probably haven't touched on that much, and I'll ask that for all of you, but start with Troy.
Yeah, so I've been to America for the sales, and I worked in England for 3 months, but the most experience I've had overseas was I was assistant trainer to a guy called Chris Nath in South Africa, and I lived there for 18 months and just absolutely loved it. A very, very different way of life over there, and I used to sleep with a shotgun under my bed, and I actually had 2 of my own staff, and they were just fantastic. But they loved me because I treated them very differently. Obviously, being I was brought up Australian, and we were polite to everyone and treated everyone equal. It was very different over there. So my staff really loved me, and I had a terrific time over there. I loved it.
And Leon, your travel experience, I know that you're famous for being, Bart's foreman, but you've obviously travelled around and seen a lot.
Yeah, I thought I loved Japan. I went to Japan, I think about 3 or 4 times with different horses of Bart. I did love Japan. I loved the atmosphere. The racing over there was really good. And I'm a bit like Troy. I went to South Africa about 4 or 5 times. Met some lovely people over there. I loved racing over there. I thought the tracks were nice, big, roomy tracks. They were really good, and I just loved the people over there.
Yeah, funnily enough, Mike de Kock last week was talking about obviously the protocols for trading horses, and sending them out from South Africa in the future. And do you think, seeing the South African market, that those horses would be competitive over here?
Yeah, I can't see why they wouldn't be. I've seen some really nice types of horses over there. They seem to work a hell of a lot different to what we work in here. I think how they've got the heavy sand, which where we started off, horses working in a heavy beach sand, etc., etc. Well, I think they were doing that in South Africa. They've been doing that for years, and horses really built up well and looked really good.
Yeah. And Kevin, in your travels?
Me, only bucket list stuff. No, I've been all Australia. Everything's Australian.
And what unique training techniques have you seen by others that have interested you, Kev?
Yeah, probably the weary factor. I mean, I saw the work that he did. Always loved the beaches anyway. We had a satellite stables when Dad first kicked off, when he first moved away from Bart. And we had a satellite stable in South Australia at Lenny Smith's place in Semaphore Beach. We used to do a lot of work on the beaches there. And that's always sort of floated my boat of, I saw the way Weary did it all at Warrnambool, and then when Troy offered me the opportunity to come to Balnarring Beach and work horses down there, I sort of jumped at that chance, and I've stayed here ever since.
Yeah, and how much has racing changed, Leon, over the years? So you've seen years and years of it. How much has it changed, and what are the main things that you think have changed?
A lot of things have changed. I think there's a lot of different training techniques now. Everyone's got different ideas. I think the biggest thing that I've seen change is the feeding aspect of it. I still feed the same way Bart fed. So, you know, I think Bart won 12 Melbourne Cups, and I keep saying to myself, well, you know, why should I change?
And does that frustrate you in some ways with all the new ideas? And sometimes, you know, would you prefer to, obviously your techniques, you trust in those techniques with all these new ways of training? Do you think it's, you know, the old tried and true method, you know, they can learn a lot from that?
Well, it's been a proven remedy over a long, long time, like, you know, but who's to say that I'm right and everyone else is wrong, which, you know, I think, you know, with time, everything changes with time. It's just a different era now with racing. What you've got to remember, I remember when I first started in stables, and we used to only race twice a week. That was on a Saturday and on a Wednesday. So training's just changed immensely in that aspect. That you're racing every day of the week. You know, it's really a big difference to what it used to be.
Yeah. And Troy, what would you bring into race if you had the chance to bring anything into racing? What would it be?
That's a really good question, and one that I'd probably need to think about a bit better. I want to see us get back to breeding more stayers. I think that we've really we either breed more stayers or cater to the sprinters. You know, make the Newmarket and the TJ Smith worth $7 million each, and cut the Melbourne Cup back. You know, we're really focused on all these young 2-year-old types. You know, you get $20 million for a Coolmore winner, but if a horse wins a Derby, it decreases your value down to $1 million or something like that. So I think we've got to change. If we could change that I reckon it'd be fantastic. And I'm not saying that we ever will, because it's probably impossible. But you know what? Let's embrace that then. Let's make us the best sprinting place in the world, which we are. And make the Oakley plate worth $4 million, make the Lightning worth $2 million. I just think we've got to embrace what we're good at. If we're not going to go back to breeding stayers, let's concentrate on the sprinters.
Yeah, and Kev, that gets us to the next one: stayers versus sprinters. I guess there's been a fairly big debate around that, because it's been a while. If you take Winks out of the picture, there's really been no, you know, middle distance to staying types that are Australian bred doing that well. What do you prefer, and do you feel similar to Troy in that respect?
Well, I agree with Troy completely on that. Probably the biggest thing would be the stayers. I think more staying races or more lead-up races to staying races would be ideal for, you know, to train their staying horses and the breeds, bringing the breed back in, the staying breeds back in. I'd prefer to have a stayer any time of the day. I think you know, and it's not gone in the days. I think still, if you ask any horse trainer in Victoria alone, what would be the biggest race they'd want to win, they'd say to you either the Cox Plate or the Melbourne Cup. No, I don't hear too many people, you know, oh yeah, what about the Newmarket Handicap? Oh yeah, we'd like to win that as well. But the main thing is the Melbourne Cup, the Caulfield Cup, and the Cox Plate.
Yeah. And do you think we have the pedigrees and the breeding here, or do you think it's a patience thing, or do you genuinely think that we don't have the pedigrees here to be winning those races now?
Yeah, I think we definitely haven't got the pedigrees to be winning these races. This is why, you know, you got people like OTI that are going overseas and they're buying stayers over there, and they're bringing it over here to win races. That's what we're looking for. I mean, we used to have such a great affiliation, or we still do, with New Zealand. But New Zealand were known as one of the best staying breeders in the world, and then that sort of went by the wayside, and now they breed sprinters more than anything.
Yeah, and I'll move to yourself there, Leon. The next bit was how do you spot talent? But if we stay on that conversation with stayers, because it's been such a big debate, but do you think, you know, maybe we're not looking for them, or do you echo the same opinion as Kevin and Troy, that we don't have that talent to find at the moment in the staying races for young stayers?
Well, I suppose I'll work with Bart, and nearly all of his horses came from New Zealand, and they've gone back as far as staying horses go. Like, you know, I don't know. I love staying horses. I think the first Melbourne Cup winner I was previously looking after was a horse called Get 'em, and that's going back a long time. And I think the Melbourne Cup is the icon of racing in Australia.
Yeah, yeah. And Troy, what other areas? So if we talk about breeding, we've been on that area, and I know that you're interested in breeding, but what other areas of the industry other than training are you interested in? And I guess that's a question for all three, but we'll start with Troy.
So will you always be a horse trainer? Is that
no? What areas of the industry other than training? So breeding, for example, or other areas that you're interested in?
Yeah, I've got a real passion for breeding, which I love. But I really love management. I like managing people. I really like managing young horses. I like managing horses' careers. And I love communication. I think, I reckon communication has become so far in horse racing, which makes it so much better. Everybody can get involved and they get the same sort of communication, whether they own 2.5% or 60%. And I think that's a fantastic thing for our industry. And everybody has that level of communication now, whereas, you think back 15 years ago, I reckon we were the only people doing voicemails and videos and that sort of stuff. But now everybody's doing it. And I reckon that's a fantastic thing that's happened to the industry. And, it's great. It just allows everyone to be so much more involved and keeps everyone interested in going.
Yeah, and Kevin, would you agree with that? Are there other areas you're interested in the industry other than just the training?
Yeah, I love the breeding side. I love looking at the breeding side. Not that I get involved in it too often. I only just purchased a couple of broodmares that have just foaled down, which is great. I like seeing the young kids coming through. I love the idea of being able to train them, being able to share your knowledge and share your wisdom with young kids coming through, spending time with jockeys, apprentice jockeys and jockeys, and having good conversations with people and having other people that you can share your passions with as well. I think that's probably a really big thing that I enjoy.
Yep. And Will, similar for you? You're mainly the passions training at this stage?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just the whole industry in general. It's so big and it caters to everyone, whether you're owning, training, riding them, just here for the love of the horse. It's just how it brings so many people together.
Yep. And I've got one here, which is for all three again, but we'll start with yourself, Leon. What are your thoughts on the ready-to-run sales? So we've got Rob Dunnett's just asking that question, and then will you be buying at he said specifically the Magic Millions in Inglis, but there's also the Karaka one coming up as well. And will you be buying at any?
Look, I just go there to look at the horses, etc. I'll leave the buying to Troy. I've got a little bit old for the buying, and Troy's got more money than I have, so I'll leave all that to him. But I love going to the sales, looking around, having a look at the horses. And look, we mark them down in the book, and he's not always right, and I'm not always right. So we agree to disagree. So I love looking at yearlings. I love looking at them.
Yeah. Troy told me once in one of the horses that I bought into, and it might have just been Troy marketing, but he said that you sent him to the sale and told him not to come back if he hadn't purchased the Maurice filly, Troy.
The Maurice filly?
Yeah.
Lovely filly, yeah.
And Troy, I'll get to you here. So in terms of the ready-to-runs, I guess that's a good question for you as well. I know you're involved in both sides of it. So to answer Rod's question there, what are your thoughts on the ready-to-run sales? And obviously the two that are upcoming, which is the Magic Millions and the Karaka.
Yeah, we've done quite a lot of work on the Karaka ready-to-run. Not so much on the Gold Coast one. But I sent a list through unfortunately had to send a list through to a bloodstock agent for him to do some work on the ground over there, which is highly unlike my style. I love looking at everything myself, but sent a list through of about 20 today, so waiting to get that back, and we'll probably be purchasing a couple.
Yeah, and as Kevin mentioned earlier, you're well renowned as being one of the the best judges of yearlings or best judges of the horse at a sale in that sort of certain price bracket, and maybe, as Kevin said, one of the best in the country, if not the world, at that. Is bloodstock and breeding an area that you can really get fully invested in, or do the training demands stop you from really doing that at 100%?
No, I could look at yearlings every day of my life because I absolutely love it. Whereas the day-to-day running of a stable, the monotony of it, really, it does my head in. So I'm very, very different to Kev and Dad. Kev's very much hands-on, and Will, very much hands-on every day doing the same thing. So Dad. Dad's religious. He's there at 2:30 every morning, whereas I've got a really good assistant trainer here at Flemington, so I'm more than happy to take off after track work on Tuesday, head up to the farm, stay there for 2 days, watch track work up there, and then when COVID's over, get back down to Geelong quite a bit. But I love the bloodstock side of things, so it's my passion.
Yep. And sports science and data analysis, Kevin, so how much has that changed over the time? So I know that, there's all these new different apps. You can check matings, you can check heart rates, you can check all of these things. How much has that changed over the time, and how much do you think it will change going forward? Do you think you'll be able to be competitive in the future without that?
Look, at the end of the day, there is still that horse sense. I mean, fortunately for us, we have that, for Dad and Troy, we have that. We can see a horse and we can pick a horse, and whether it go for $100,000 or $1 million, we still understand what we're looking for in a horse. As far as science goes, it's just it's mind blowing, really. When you look at you're testing heart scores, you're testing in their DNA whether the horse is going to sprint or whether they're going to stay, or there's so much that's involved that can be involved, and that's been applied to racing now. But yeah, it's just getting bigger and bigger. But I still think the old horseman will actually still come through, and you still need those people that are hands on, that understand their animal, and that ensure that these animals are getting to the races in the best condition that they can. It's not just all about a routine and you stick by this routine. It's about knowing your animal as well. So there's a lot of different applications that you can put science to, but there's still that horseman at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, and I think coaches in other sports, and I know my background is in soccer, and same thing, all of those data analysis and sports science detail, all of that information is great, but sometimes it can cloud your judgment from what you can see with your two eyes, and sometimes you can't actually explain what you can see in verbal words. So, Leon, what are your thoughts on all of that? I mean, you obviously grew up in an area where you didn't have that. Do you find that helpful, or do you find it almost a hindrance?
Yeah, well, I find it hard to sort of grasp with, I think that's, when you're breeding horses, et cetera, I think somewhere along the lines, somewhere along the lines, genetics seem to click, and you've got a champion. I remember a really champion horse that Tommy Smith had, a horse called Tulloch. Well, when you go through his pedigree, really, he wasn't entitled to be the horse he was, But somewhere along the lines, something clicked, and that's where you got the good horse. Yep. Like when you looked at Tulloch, really, he was swayed back. He wasn't a big horse, you wouldn't, if you went to buy him at the sales, you'd look at him 3 or 4 times before you looked like buying him,
And Troy, I guess the next one here, changing owners' experiences. And I know that you're actually at a function that you had to pop out of the function to do the webinar. So that probably explains, for anyone wondering why you have people standing outside your car looking in at you. But owners' experiences, how are they changing over time? And you touched on the videos and you touched on the communication, but how do you see it changing going forward?
I think that it's a major part of the industry. Clubs are constantly working. I know the VRC is diligent in what we can do to make the owner experience better. So they're constantly working on that. And as I said, the communication's just, it's knocking it out of the park at the moment. So I think we're on the right track. Obviously, we need to listen to you guys. I think the smaller percentages and stuff like that has really allowed people to get involved. And I think that's been a major change in our industry. It'd be nice to have more names in the book of people. That could be a slight little issue. Of having more than 20 would be fantastic. But I think we're on the right track, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I mean, COVID in some ways. So, Kevin, you would say with COVID and owners being unable to go to the track and do a lot of things that they normally would, like stable visits, have you found that difficult in keeping your owners happy, or do you think it's an opportunity to maybe, look at creative ways that maybe stay in the game now long term? They came in because of COVID, but they could be good things to use going forward.
Absolutely. I made sure that we made as many communications as we could without. I mean, you can overdo it. I'm sure there's plenty of owners that'll be sitting there saying, "I'd love to see my horse a box cam where I'm watching eat, sleep, and lay down all day, and then watch him walk out of his stable." And you'd love to do that, and we'd love to provide that service. But I think there's a point where you can communicate a lot, and your weekly updates, videos, your photographs, and just letting generally letting your clients know that what the horse is doing, where they're up to, and all that sort of stuff. I reckon that's great, and I think with COVID we've had to do that. It sort of pushed us down that line where we're saying, these guys need to see, because they generally come to visit the stables, and they might come on a Sunday and have a look at the horses and things like that. But now we've had to really bring everybody into the stables, via communications and help them or keep them to be a part of the whole system and the whole team.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Will, is it that side of the game, is that interesting to someone like yourself being involved with the horses now, or to you, is it more, you love the training the horses more than the communication at this stage and it daunts you?
At the moment it's the training side of things. I think the communication is very important, and it's not only giving the owners an experience of what their horse is up to, but it's also building a relationship between you and the owners, which makes them really feel like they're a part of the team. It is very interesting, but main focus is trying to learn as much as I can from Kev, and even just speaking to Leon and Troy. But yeah, it's a big something for the future that's going to be continuously used, I think.
Yeah, it's a huge area, and I mean, obviously I've been doing a little bit of work with Griffith the Cock in marketing and sales recently. And Leon, how much is too much information for owners? Like, where does the line cross? So, like Kevin said, they would love to see everything.
You're talking to the wrong bloke.
But I guess, I know. For you, how's it changed?
I was told to, when I was an apprentice, I was told to keep my mouth shut and ears open. Don't talk to anybody.
Yeah. And Troy,
look, if it wasn't for Troy, I wouldn't do any communication whatsoever. I think I'd be lucky to have one owner if it was all on my own now. I think he rings me up at least once or twice a week. Come on, get these communications out. Do updates on the horses. Do this, and then I try and do about 33 horses in the morning. And by the time I get to about the 5th horse, I'm tongue-tied. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
But that's me.
And I guess the thing is, though, the old-fashioned win races, sell horses, that never changes. So you do need to have success no matter how good the marketing is.
Yeah.
Well, I think the old saying is the horses do the talking, so you're only as good as your last winner, believe me.
And Troy, racing's all about stories. How good's this one that's up now? Dennis Pagan winning the Derby.
Yeah, amazing. It was one of my proudest moments on a race course, and financially, I had nothing to do with it. So, but to be involved with Dennis and to help him get his license and to buy Johnny Get Angry for him was fantastic.
Yeah, and I think an amazing story, not just for you guys, but for racing in general, to see the front pages, the back pages, everything being positive in a time where, you know, not too many things are positive during COVID. Even outside the horse racing industry was pretty amazing for everyone. So top job on your involvement there.
Yeah, it was really good. It really transcended all sports, didn't it? It was just a really good story, and great to be part of it.
And I've got questions here now. There's only a couple, but here's one for Leon from Clint Preble. It says, Leon, did you know Bart's father back in your early days in South Australia?
I rode for Bart's father.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
yes, I did. Mr. Jim Cummings, yes, I knew him. He used to come around. He had a horse called Sojourner, and he used to pull like a train. And look, I was only a little fellow, but you sort of get to know horses, and you get a knack how to hold them and how to maintain them, like, you know. And he used to come around, and I'd be hiding in a sand roll somewhere because it'd be about 10 below zero, and he'd go and see the boss, and I'd see him walk over to him, old Blue Egny, and he'd say, "Oh, Blue," he said, "can that little kid ride that horse for me again?" Like, you know, and I used to be hiding in the sand roll somewhere trying to get out of it. But he was an absolute gentleman. Yeah.
And Troy, a couple of questions for you. First one is, how much training do you put in for the ski season?
It's a bit cheeky. It was probably Ross Bresnan, I bet. Look, to be honest, we didn't get to ski this season because of COVID, and I'm very lucky because I've put a couple of pounds on. Probably put a couple of tons on, to be honest, because of COVID. But everyone will be very pleased to know that I'm going into training for ski season next year. I plan to be 30 kilos lighter, and I'm going to ski the joint down.
And I guess so that's if there's any other participant questions there, that would be fantastic to shoot them through. But I mean, do you have any questions for each other? So Kevin, if there's, you know, actually we'll start with Will. Will, if there was any question you could ask Kevin, Leon, or Troy, what would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't think I could honestly have enough questions to ask Leon. I think if I could spend weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, just learning absolutely everything off him, I'd be there in a heartbeat. There's so much I've got to learn, and I pretty much live off the quote that I've heard from Leon, is that the day I stop learning is the day I die. So you can't possibly know everything, what's the right thing to do with a horse and what's the wrong thing to do with a horse. It's always a learning curve. You try new things every day, and yeah, I'd love to be able to pick the brain of Leon all the time.
Yeah, I've got another one here for you, Troy. Who paid the fine for the hug, and was it worth every cent?
You know what?
Dennis paid it.
Didn't. I plan to pay. I plan to pay it. I had every intention of paying it, but Dennis paid it straight away. So, and you know what? I'd do it 100 times over. I've got a question for Kevin though, if that's all right.
Yep.
Are you going to be really disappointed with Dad and I when we steal Will from you?
I don't think you're right. I can give you a thing. He can be on loan for a little bit, but yeah, that's about as much as you get.
And as we touch on that family connection there, Troy, did you want to touch on Ed? So your son Ed is now, we've seen photos of him riding and out with the horses during COVID. I mean, he's having a bit of a break from school because of COVID, which means even more time out in the paddocks with the horses. Is he the next generation?
Yeah, my word. You know what, Corey, 5 months ago, he had no interest whatsoever. And COVID hit, and Lauren and our kids moved up to the farm. I was going backwards and forwards 3 times a week, 2 times a week. And Ed's just really thrived. He's just really picked it up, and he's got the bug, and he got the bug a lot earlier than I got it, and he's absolutely loving it at the moment. So we're teaching him how to ride. So so he learns every facet of the industry. And I can see him definitely being a trainer one day.
Yeah, and another one for you here, Troy. So they're coming thick and fast. It's probably because there's a few owners from our syndicate in here, but it's an anonymous attendee who says, Troy, what are your thoughts on buying and selling yearlings at the sales next year with the effects of COVID? So, do you think that will have a long-lasting effect on the sales?
It's going to be really interesting. I think, I'm not sure if it's affected the upper level too much. And I'm really planning to have a bit of a crack, much to our business manager's dismay. He's not going to be too happy, but I want to have a red hot go and probably get 40 or 50 into the yard next year. So we're going to be quite strong, and Dad and I will be doing a hell of a lot of work to try and find some really nice horses.
So we Leon and Kevin, just to put you guys in the picture, well, Leon should know because you'll have some of them there. But we, with the webinar, we had a pretty strong following in the first series. And at the back end of it, we put a syndicate together to buy a horse at the gold yearling sale. And we sent Troy in to bat for us, and he came out with 3 rather than 1. So, and one of them was more than our original budget. So, that was pretty good upselling and marketing there. But no, we got 3 really nice yearlings, and as Kevin said, his eye for a bargain is pretty strong, and that sale was pretty low values for the vendors. But Leon, do you see that as a big problem for the market? I mean, it's great for trainers to buy cheap horses, but do you think it's a problem for the industry ongoing if the vendors aren't getting their share of that pie, I guess?
Yeah, I think you'll find that you've only get a couple of really good horses, and then the year after it'll be sky high again. I think the breeding game, like the racing game, fluctuates very quickly, doesn't it? No, I think it'll hold it in good stead.
Yeah. And Kevin, are you guys planning to be fairly active in the sales as well?
Oh, we'll go, but we'll pick off the crumbs. We'll pick off the crumbs. I'll just sit and watch what goes under Troy's garden, then I'll have a look and see whether it's in my budget. But yeah, there's actually plans that we'll go in there, and we're looking at 4 or 5 different horses this time around, so or per sale anyway.
Yeah. Fantastic, and we've basically covered all the questions. Next week I've got Adam Sangster, so we're keeping the racing family theme going. So we had the Cock family on last week, obviously the Corstens this week, and next week Adam Sangster. So I'm sure there'll be loads of stories there and a little bit of a different path and background. So we've covered sort of South African racing, Australian racing, and now potentially UK racing with Adam. So it could be quite interesting. Hopefully everyone tunes in next Monday 7 p.m. And finally, thank you to Kevin, Will, Leon, and Troy. I mean, just like Will said earlier, you could listen to Leon speak for hours, and it's a bit like myself and the guests. We could listen to you guys speak for hours about horses because your knowledge is incredible. Thank you very much to all 4 for coming on. Thank you to all our viewers tuning in. So thank you, Kevin and Will. Thank you, Leon, and thank you, Troy.
Cheers.
Thanks, Corey.
Cheers, Corey. Thanks to everyone for watching us.
Yeah,
thanks.
Thanks, guys, and we'll end it there. And thank you very much once again. So I appreciate it.
No worries, Corey. Thank you.
Thank you.